A selection of items that have been produced by individuals with developmental disabilities. We do that in a vocational program for them. They actually receive compensation for helping us in that way. You get a wonderful product that they have produced, and the individuals themselves have a paycheck. Win-win situation. One of our other publications, in addition to the Buffalo State Hospital book, you can see an example here. Poorhouse Trilogy. It tells about life, institutional life in the late 19th and early 20th century. Another way to support us, like all current organizations, we have a GoFundMe campaign. If you're interested in making a monetary donation, that you can find us on GoFundMe.
So what we're going to do now for the next few minutes is to get a chance to hear some stories from some contributors to the book there, really the contributions by people in that section really make this book something more than a coffee table book. It's more than a history book. It's something that's going to make you want to go back and read this. It's a personal and private account of what it was like at the Buffalo State Hospital. So please welcome former recipient of services and survivor of services, Carl Sherrill-Horn. Carl also happens to be a mental health community advocate. So, Carl.
Thank you, Doug. My name is Carl Sherrill-Horn. I'm a former patient at the Psychiatric Center. I currently work with the Mental Health Association of Erie County. So I have experience of receiving services. I also have the experience of being a clinician. I've worked in the field. I was a patient at BDC in 1982 and 1983. I really can't honestly tell you how long I was there. Of course, we're talking about 33 or so years ago. I was 20 years old the first time I was there, and I recall that it was a very profound experience. Where I was at, in terms of where I was housed, so to speak, was in the building that's adjacent to Buffalo State. I wasn't in Strozzi. I wasn't obviously in the Richardson complex, but the building that is adjacent to Strozzi, which is adjacent to the Buffalo State Hospital, Buffalo State College, is, I don't know if it's still used now. But I was on the second floor, and in that part of the hospital, I was in a unit with other men. And many of these men were profoundly mentally disabled. I remember their names. There was Mark and Walter, Daryl, Tony, David, Mike. These individuals still stay with me today. I can remember their faces. I can remember what they looked like. Honestly, I remember how they sounded. I can remember some of the behaviors. So it's through that experience, that memory, that I still carry with me today. Now, it's interesting. I had a couple experiences there that really stuck with me over this time, and in a way, at least for me, helped me in my recovery in a way, I guess you could say. I had an experience where I was there. I was still at the time actually. I took a Bible with me when I was there. Despite my condition, so to speak, I still was reaching out for help, seeking help spiritually, and I took my Bible, and it really meant a lot to me. It was the Bible that I received when I was being confirmed at the age of 14. It didn't have my name on it. And I remember one evening I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it. And so I began looking around, and I ended up in the area of the shower stalls, really stalls, no shower curtains or anything, just these stalls, and I looked in, and the Bible was there, destroyed in the water. And it was at that moment that I said to myself, I gotta get out. And I really, truth be told, I felt this is not. I said this is a new place. That's, at least in my own mind at the time, I felt, it was the kind of place where I just didn't want to be. However, the fact remains that I was there twice. There weren't always bad experiences. I remember we would go on these outings, and it was kind of interesting. we'd take these outings together as a group. Of course, we were chaperones, so forth. We'd take a bus. I remember one of the outings was to the Buffalo Convention Center. There was a outdoor show we went to. Another time was going to a soccer game at the old auditorium, Buffalo Law. And so it was these experiences that kind of balanced the negative experiences I had. And interestingly enough, it was through this time that I began to understand better, what could help me and what I need to do. I also had experience of receiving ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, because I was in such a profound depression at the time. And the thing that I remember is that there was a tunnel leading from the building that I was in to the Scrosy building. And we had to go down, I think, an elevator, and we had the wheelchair, because the wheelchair was going to transport me back to the room, because I was unable to walk, obviously. But the thing that stuck out to me most was I pushed the wheelchair over to the room. I had to push my wheelchair. I remember doing it. So I'd get to the room, of course, I would go through the procedure, and then I would be wheeled back to my room where I would recover and come back to consciousness. Now, mind you, I had a series of 6 treatments, and that was all I ever had. I was very fortunate it actually worked. But that still stays with me today, that experience of pushing the wheelchair over, and then also the experience of going to the ECT itself, which was very traumatic in a sense, but it did work. I guess I'll close with this. In 1983 was the second time I was there, and on that unit, I had been in college before. Actually, I'd gone to college some. That's where I actually had my first psychotic episode in Michigan. But I was hoping to go to college. I wanted to go to Buffalo State. And I remember I wasn't able to go because of my condition. And one day, I heard this music. So I went over to the window. Of course, there was bars on the window. There's bars on the window. And I heard this music, and I looked over into the quad right behind Rockwell Hall. And there was a concert going on. It turned out it was Fall Fest. And there was a musical performance going on. This performer, his name is Adrian Ballou, really great guitarist, love him to death. And he was playing, and I said to myself, I just want to be there. I just want to be there. And I ended up getting out of the hospital, and that following January, I enrolled at Buffalo State College. And it took me an additional 3 years. I had some college experience from it. It took me an additional 3 years to graduate from there. And then I ended up going back years later and got my master's degree in 1998. So on the bright side, I like to say I graduated from 2 institutions. And I carry that with me sincerely. I really feel that in so many ways, it was a continuation and something that I really feel very blessed. I feel very thankful that I've been able to, come to a point in my life where I can understand what it's like and to be able to share and help with others. I've had that experience in the past, and that's kind of what's got me here today, to remember those experiences personally to the point where I feel that I need to just try to help others, and that's a lot of what you do. Also, before I close, I really want to thank my colleagues, Kelly Muskowski and Richard McNally from the Mental Health Association, and also my good friend Max Donatelli, and also Nancy Bluebird, who else here today. So thank you, folks, for coming out. Thank you for your attention, and God bless.
Because every time I flip a page, this geriatric YouTube would start. And I recall a building or person or a place that I've worked in. And this is going back to when I had just turned 18 years old. And this little white suit on. So I'm flipping through the photos, especially I recall this or I recall that. I couldn't look up, and I had to get back on track after a while. It was very difficult to read it straight through. First of all, I have to comment on, congratulate Dr. Olmsted and staff for writing a great book. Certainly gives a good history of the facility up to the point where they stop. And that'll be a whole new book. And I think this book describes the history and some of the treatments that were going on, including when they closed it. There's a photo in here, and I'll get to those in a little while, but there's a photo in there that shows a building. It was the last building the patients were in. And so let me get started with my 4,000 pages of notes here. I have to behave because my grandchildren are here. So for those folks who know me, I'll probably be, and what? Louder. Oh, louder, I'm sorry. I have to behave because my grandchildren are here. And for those folks who know me, I'm sure they're going to use me for part of the Tourette's syndrome parts here. I do want to go in sort of in three parts this is in, and I do like the title here, In Light and Shadow. And I would have to say, in all due respect, that it is taken out of the shadow. There is a light on it, but for all of us who are interested in mental health, it needs to have that light brighter again. Over the years, funding many of the services that were provided, even this book, have deteriorated. There's a couple of colleagues who worked here also in the book, Mary and Russell, and a doctor who currently works on another friend of mine that works there. This book describes how treatments were in place, didn't work, moved on to something else. And then there was a whole area where there was a lot of activity going on, recreation, occupational therapy. The state of New York was also in the vanguard of doing community services, outpatients. We had programs up in Lansingville all the way down to the one in Lackawanna. Most of those programs had closed, so it is important that we continue to keep a light on the services that are provided to the mentally ill. And I do agree with Dr. Bull's assessment that it is an open institution. There's fine people working there, sometimes under challenging circumstances, great doctors, and many of them are still there working very hard to get folks back in the community. I'll say this to my grandchildren, that reading is fundamental, and this book certainly is a great history book, but even though I knew a lot about the state hospital, I was impressed to find out that there was a farm colony up in Wilson, New York. Believe it or not, the building they use is still there. So I tell my grandchildren, history is interesting, and always you can learn something. And according to the narrative, that building and that program was very successful. Growing up on the lake, getting away from the city, was very enjoyable, sad to say, like many other very good programs ceased to exist after a short period of time. I will get into some of the time frames that Doug talks about that are framed from again. I have to reflect back as a young 18-year-old, looking at some of the diagnoses that Doug came up with that are long gone, pre-dox, syphilis, a lot of the folks that were in that hospital because of that. And I was fortunate to work in the world with them because I saw those factors that brought people into the institution. The histories were this big. Families that just didn't know anything to do with them. And during Christmas, my daughter gave me this book for Christmas. And it's interesting how people are forgotten. I'm looking through the book, I put it down on the table. One of the guests at our house comes over and looks at it. She was married to a friend of ours. And she comes up to me and asks, "Did you work at the state hospital?" I go, "Yes, for 45 years. So she describes that as growing up, her family would never talk about her grandfather. He was just not existent. They would never drive by the state hospital. So she starts chatting with me, and it turns out that he was one of my favorites. And I think there's another piece in here from the anecdotal section that one of the neighbors always heard this gentleman mechanical car back along. And he had neighbors, once a wedding. And so it was interesting to sit and talk with this young girl about her grandfather. She was just thrilled that somebody actually knew him because he was just locked away, like many folks there. There was many times that building at one time, when I started there, before they knocked a couple wings down, as long as that building was, there was 1,200 people just living in that building alone. And on any given business day, if there was 10 people, it would be a lot. So it was sad how so many of these people were just locked up, forgotten by their families and friends, and basically the staff working with their families. And some of the personal accounts which Marion and Mary Donato share, and also Reverend Eldridge, who all three I knew, they're very accurate and, will help sell this book, because if you go downstairs and get it, you'll see the personal accounts of the staff and dedication they had, how closely they work with, and I think the recurring theme, at least with the employees that are mentioned in the book, is that it was a family atmosphere. There was a lot of taking care of, and also being cared. In many cases, it wasn't a subordinate. I'm the caregiver, you're the patient. They were very active in making those active interpersonal relationships work. And Mary, especially, and Mary, both in the recreation areas, did an awful lot of work. And it brought back a lot of memories of dances they had, and going out in community, family picnics, parades. I don't want to know how old Mary and Mary is, but they had a building there, Andrews Hall, maybe I know the first superintendent. Old wooden floored basketball court, and that was the hub of activities until the regional buildings opened up. It was constant use. It was the NASA said, religious services were said. Again, sadly, just like that building collapsed, it's no longer there. There was also a terrific library for the patients. It was used in one of the old TV buildings. That building is still there. It was converted after a number of years to a recreation picnic area. It's back near the baseball fields. That building is also deteriorating and sad. I remember, again, as a kid going there, because when I went and started to get training, and I had to work in the occupational therapy department, recreation therapy. We had to go through all the departments. And the library was one of the areas you had to spend a day in. It was just packed with books. But the best thing was I had to go there in the winter and heat. It was always like 110. So I read a book and I fall asleep, read another book and I fall asleep. And the reason it was so hot is, most people don't know, that at one time, if you drive through the property, there's a large smokestack in Upstate's property that powered all the campus of Upstate and State Hospital. And then some genius decided, no, we're going to sever all those pipes and Upstate on that, we'll put our own in the State Hospital. And that was the demise of the building material. There's no more heating. It was welded pipe shut and all that. And Upstate, their power plant, and they put in this little small campus to take care of the two buildings and minor. But the programs that were going on in the late 60s, early 70s were spectacular. They had many programs that the patients participated in. One big successful thing, we had a lot of patients who worked on the grounds, in the laundry. We had our own in-house laundry, working grounds, working the laundry, with large laundry, so numerous programs all over. We had two brothers, I'll never forget this, there's another building, it was a TV building, it was converted. And it's gone now, but these two brothers looked like ZZ Top. They were twins. And in one of the books, one of the notes here, I'm not sure it was Mary or Marion, they used to take material, socks, whatever. And these two guys, 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day, literally would sit at rooms, boom, 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 making runners for tables, small rungs. It was just amazing. I mean, I don't know how the fears never got out of the rules, but it was a very fascinating program. And then, we had programs most people here wouldn't realize it, but the Buffalo news boxes, courier boxes, all were made by patients. And the little guy that's bald, Mr. Clean, all his little sponges that he would clean off your refrigerators with and that, they were all packaged and sent out by patients at the hospital. We made kites for a company. All those programs, sadly, are also gone. And one less place for patients to feel a sense of dignity and participation. They all enjoyed it. Those active programming, in most cases, are in the past century. Let me just speak a couple about the pictures, and then I'll sit down before the ink. On page 79, as you're going through this book, here's the pictures of corridors and hallways. I picked out one because my grandchildren are here and my 2 children. And the one picture does show where I had the opportunity to meet your mother and my grandmother. And I used to always tell people it's mental health that brought my wife and I together. And her mental health that kept us together. On page 83, there's a picture of the grounds. Most people don't realize that all that property was designed by the same fellow who did Central Park. And the trees, thank God they were saving a couple. There's a couple that are actually propped up by wood on the same. But they redeveloped the entire park. So it's a parking lot, and it's just it looks something. And in the summer, it was always people walking around that. It's been severely restricted. And you have to picture this in the summer in this building. It was required, not would you like to do it. People had to go out and get fresh air. So in the back of the building that faces Upstate, there would be between 800 and 1,000 people sitting outside. And it was always interesting because some would be walking, but some would be sitting at picnic tables and benches. But they also had these humongous fiberglass rocking chairs. People loved rocking them. It was also the beginning of Thorazine treatments. And Thorazine is very light sensitive. So besides seeing all these folks here, there'd be 800 people with straw hats on, just to keep the sun up. And it was mandatory that they go out here in the summer, but it was again something that you'll never see again. On page 86, there's a photo of the last building down there, Reed Street.